All right, welcome everybody. Today we have Seattle Mariners right-handed relief pitcher Paul Sewald. Thank you, Paul, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So how's it going this season? I know you're having a good year. You're kind of been in that closer role, late inning guy, ton of strikeouts. How's the season been going overall before we jump into things?
It's been pretty good. It's better than I had ever expected. It was a new challenge, a new environment for me leaving New York and being in free agency, trying to figure out where I was going to go. And my gut was telling me Seattle, and apparently instincts were correct. Everything has gone fantastic this year. I couldn't expect anything more. And we're still in a playoff race, and I'm pitching well. It's been pretty good so far.
Yeah, that's great to see. We've been following your progress along all year and throughout your whole career. So let's take it back to kind of the beginning days, your hometown, where you went to college, when you got drafted, you don't have to go into big detail, but just kind of how you got to be with the Mariners to this point.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Las Vegas, and grew up there, played at Bishop Gorman High School, got a scholarship to go to the University of San Diego, spent 4 years there. First two didn't pitch very much. Second two pitched a lot better, pitched a lot more, got a chance to get drafted by the New York Mets in 2012. And then worked my way up to the big leagues, one minor league level at a time, just going from rookie ball to low A, high A, double A, triple A. And then in 17, I got called up 2 days into the major league season, spent most of the 17th season in the big leagues, most of the 18th season in the big leagues. 19, I was a little bit up and down, more so in AAA than big leagues. And then last year, with the short season, nobody really spent a lot of time anywhere. And then this year I did not break camp with the big league team, but went to the alt site for a month, and got called up 1 week into the minor league season in the middle of May. And then I've been in the big leagues in Seattle ever since.
Awesome. That's great. So taking it back to your first big league season, do you remember what it felt like, where you were at? I got a spoiler alert. I was with you when you got the call to the big leagues. Who was the team you faced? Who's the first hitter you faced in the big leagues?
So I got called up. We played the Miami Marlins. It was like 35 degrees and windy. And so I couldn't feel my hands. So that didn't help. And then I couldn't feel my legs because it was my major league debut. So it didn't go very well. First hitter was a Danny Hechavarria. Okay. He got a base hit. Then JT Realmuto got a base hit. And then D. Gordon got a base hit. And then Miguel Rojas, Zach bunted a run home. So 2 runs came home, and then they took me out, and luckily the guy came in and stranded my 2 runners, so it didn't get out of control in my debut. But luckily it's gone a lot better since then.
Yeah, it's good to get your feet wet early there in April in New York City. So
yes.
So here at FlightScope, we're data tracking technology. We're big in the golf marketplace. We originally started with tracking missiles, and then we incorporated it into tracking ball speed, radar data, and now we're in the baseball scene. So let's talk a little bit about some of your pitch data. You don't have to give away your secrets, but what kind of pitch data do you look at? Are you looking at it on a daily basis? Do you look at it weekly? What are your main focus points that you look at?
Yeah. So I'll say for pitch data, it's so important to look at, but you don't want to go every day. So I think more of every week. I just want to check to make sure, hey, I had 3 appearances this week. How did my data look? Was it skewed? Am I trending in the wrong direction on something? Am I trending in the right direction on something that we could work through? Because on any given day, your data could be different. And so you don't want to get too involved in the numbers from day to day. Who knows? You didn't have the right breakfast, or you didn't have the right time to warm up, that sort of thing. So for me, it's more like a weekly check of our staff to be like, hey, did my stuff look the same this week as it did last week, or what we're trying to go for? And that's really what I'm looking for. And so for me, it's just the horizontal and vertical movement pitches, the profiles that way. Am I staying in my vertical movement of 15 to 18 inches? Is my slider sweeping, plus 17? Maybe if we can get into the 20s, then I know that it's been really good. 17, we're kind of like, all right, let me make sure that I'm working on making sure I get the good grip and that sort of thing. So for me, it's more of a weekly check. But I do need to make sure that I'm looking at it, because at the end of the day, that's essentially what your pitchers are doing. And if you look at the data, it can tell you exactly what's going on out there.
Yeah. So is that like a mental study for yourself? You go back to the hotel room after a game, or maybe in the, eating dinner before the game, you're looking at your own data. Or is that something that you go over with the catcher and the pitching coach and perhaps the manager? How does that, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, for me personally, when I go back and look, I want to go back and watch the video of the location of the pitches. That's what I'm chasing on every given day, and that's what I'm chasing on every pitch. Obviously, I want my stuff to be as nasty as possible, and the data will tell me that. But in the moment, I'm really looking for, did I hit my location of my pitches? Was my fastball up in the zone? Was my slider sweeping to my glove side? So for me, that's what I look at in my video. And then, I'll take a look at the numbers, on a Monday, say after the last week, I pitched 3 times. Let me look. Okay. Yeah. All that data, all those data points look fine. That's kind of exactly where I've been all season. That's where we want to look. It's kind of mostly just like a sheet of paper. Let me just look at every pitch I threw last week. And we have, the ideal data points. And then I'll go off of that. Like, okay, are those allowable misses, or is that something to be concerned about? And it's mostly just hand me the piece of paper. And at this point, I know a little bit of what I do well and what I don't do well. So I don't need the coach on a weekly basis, but say if there was an issue and last week didn't go very well, then it would be like, hey, pitching coach, catchers, like, hey, what did you see last week? Because this doesn't look very good to me. Maybe we need to work on something in a bullpen and then try it out again in a game in 2 days, sort of thing. And that's kind of where I've gotten to the point with it. And everyone's different. Some people don't understand it. Some people understand it really well and want it every day and can tinker with it every day, that sort of thing. For everyone, it's just it's however you think you can pitch best. Some people don't want to know anything about anything and they just want to go out there and pitch. Other guys want to know all the data.
Yeah. So you talk about tinkering. That could be with pitch grips, with mechanics. How much tinkering do you have going on with like pitch grips during the season? Is it in catch play? Is it in the game? Like, hey, I found a new grip today. I'm going to just try and rip a couple off here. Or is that most of the work done in the off season when, there's no hitters and you can kind of just tinker and try around with whatever you like?
I would say a new grip, you try during the off season, say like, hey, my changeup isn't very good. I'm going to try and work on 3 or 4 changeup grips during the off season, see if I can land on one that really feels good. But for me, my slider grip changes probably every time I go out there. It's whatever I feel that day. In the moment, it's just about competing. And it's like, all right, how can I get my slider to move the most today? I don't know what grip's going to feel the best. Every ball feels different. That's part of the reason we got into the sticky substance, situation in the first place, is every ball is different.
Yeah.
I have a basic grip that I go to, but if that doesn't feel good when I go to grip the ball, I'm not going to throw with that. I'm going to move my fingers one way or maybe grip the other side of the ball or something like that. So for me, it's every pitch could be different as far as what my slider, what my fastball do. So for me, it's just like, hey, how do I feel comfortable today? At the end of the day, I try to have the same grip and the same release point and that sort of thing to be consistent. But tinkering is important. You have to be able to tinker because you're not going to feel the same every single day. And when it comes down to it, I'm a relief pitcher and they got to get me in there. I got to compete when I get in there.
Yeah, you got to go with what grip feels comfortable at the time. And sometimes the circumstances of the game might change the grip. You got runners on base and scoring position, 2 outs in the 9th inning, and maybe just don't catch that seam on the slider as much as you'd like to, or, maybe you over grip it, you're gripping it too hard. So it's good just to kind of go back to that baseline of just resetting yourself, make you feel comfortable and going about it that way.
Right. We're human beings. Things aren't perfect. It's not a computer simulation. Like things are different every single day. And so, you just come down to what can I do to compete the best today? Is this the grip that's going to work best for me? Perfect. Then I'm going to go with that.
Yeah. So this year you've been throwing a ton of great 4-seam fastballs. You've increased your velocity by 1 mile an hour, which is, in the big leagues, to do that at a later age and later on in your career. You don't see too many guys especially without the sticky substances, increasing their spin rate, increasing their four seam velocity. When did that kind of start? I know you've always felt like you had more in the tank. When did you really realize, hey, I can get another mile and a half, another 2 miles here on my four seam? Was that a grip change? Was it mechanical? How did that come about? And when did you realize, like, hey, I'm not a 91, 92 mile an hour pitcher anymore. I'm a 92, 93, 94, 95 mile an hour pitcher?
Yeah, I think it's been a combination of things. I think I could have been that velocity guy in 2020 had we had a normal season. I think I changed my off-season routine of I stopped taking time off from throwing. I'll take a couple weeks and then I'll spend 6 weeks really lightly tossing. Jacob deGrom showed me that that's what he did, or that's what he started to do a few years ago. And I thought, well, he's the best pitcher on the planet. I might as well try whatever he's doing.
Yeah,
so the off season leading into 2020 year, I didn't take any time off. I was throwing, and I came into spring training better and more prepared than I've ever been. I was already up to 93 in spring training, which is had been more like a May, June, July, finally get to my velo type of velocity. And so I think I really have gained a little bit of velocity by just not taking any time off. And it's nothing crazy. It's not like long toss every single day for 365, but it's just, I'm not taking any time off. So I'm never getting stiff. So I'm never having to work back into game shape.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've been able to keep my game shape for about 2 years, which has definitely helped.
Yeah. So every time you're throwing, it's basically like a game situation. And even if you're playing catch in November, you're still feeling like you could go out and face a big league lineup that day. So
yeah. And it helps that I just never get out of routine. I compare it to people who, if you're going to take 2 months off of working out, it's going to take you 2 more months to get back into the shape that you were in when you were on a good workout routine. And everyone that goes to the gym understands that sort of concept. If you're trying to train for a marathon and you train for 8 months and then you stop doing, and then the marathon, and you do the marathon, you do it great, and then you take 2 months off, you're not in marathon shape after 2 months. That seems ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that, you never get out of the routine. So then you start to develop more of that's what my normal feeling of my arm feels like, sort of thing. And then I'll say it definitely, with a little bit of the mechanics change and a little bit of the change of trying to throw the ball up in the zone, I think a little bit, I am better equipped to do that. I think the last few years when I'm trying to throw the ball down and away to right-handers, I feel like I've gotten to the point where I'm placing it on my glove side. And now my location is just trying to rip it at the top of the zone. I think that's giving me a little more freedom to really let it eat and throw the ball, and just let it spin up in the zone and ride on those guys. And I think that helps with a little bit of velocity instead of trying to feel like I'm locating down at the knees.
Yeah. So talking about spin rates and, fastball slider, if you could, what would be your ideal within reason, on the upper end of your averages? What's your four seam fastball velocity, spin rate, and say vertical break? And then same for a slider. Like if you could, I'm not talking video game sliders. I'm talking like upper average Paul Sewald velocity, spin rate, horizontal break on a slider. What numbers are you trying to achieve there?
Okay. So on the fastball, it would be, like a really good above average would be about 93 miles an hour. It would be about 2,500 spin, maybe a little bit higher, probably 2,500. And then that like 17, 18 vertical movement break. I've gone higher than that once or twice, but that typically doesn't happen. So 93, 2,500, 17 to 18 right at the top of the zone is my perfect fastball, my perfect average fastball that I can throw routinely and get people out with.
Yeah.
And the slider would be about 84, and it would have about 1 inch of vertical drop and about 20 horizontal sweep. That's about where we've gotten, that when I'm throwing 20 horizontal sweep sliders, they're pretty darn good. The couple have gone a little bit more, but 20, I know that I can start in the right-handed batter's box and end up down and away to a righty.
What's your ideal kind of sweet spot spin rate for the slider there? Are you talking like 28, 2,900? Or are you more of a 26, 2,700 spin rate on the slider?
So in my opinion, I'm not looking exactly for spin rate on the slider. The slider is a two plane or mostly just horizontal plane.
Yeah.
Pitch. It's not like a curveball where the spin rate really has a direct effect on the action of the pitch, just like a fastball, because those are both spinning at this angle. Mm-hmm. The spin rate is more important. But when I'm just trying to get it to go this direction, spin rate's not necessarily that important on a slider. But I'll say right about 27, 2750 is where I normally throw them. But that's not in the slider. I'm not really looking at what my spin rate is and that sort of thing. I'm mostly just trying to see how much can I make it move.
Okay, nice. That's good information for our younger listeners out there, just to know that spin rate's more important on a fastball curveball type pitcher than a four-seam fastball slider pitcher. That everyone gets caught up in spin rate numbers and what it's doing. But, here's a big league pitcher telling us that maybe you don't need to worry about slider spin rate as much as you're looking at horizontal break of the pitch. So I think that's something out there that the listeners can really understand, when to look at spin rate, when to look at horizontal break on certain pitches.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. All these people, FlightScope, PBR, everyone's doing great of making sure that kids can have their data, because that's what they're putting on television. That's what they're putting on ESPN. That's what they're putting on MLB Network. Everyone wants to have their data. That's how you're being scouted. But it's important to know what your pitches do, what you're trying to look at, what the numbers mean, because I can give you a million numbers, but if you don't know what they mean and you don't know how to make yourself better with them, then it's not worth anything. So it's just important to make sure that if you're using these data numbers, you need to make sure that you talk to somebody who has a good understanding of what you need to do to make those pitches better and what you're looking for when you're looking at those numbers. So I'm glad that if nothing else, I could help one or two listeners understand that.
Yeah, we always say here in the office that whether it's golf or baseball, you can't comprehend 25 data parameters being thrown at your face. Like, you got to look in and zero in on 2 or 3 at most at a time, that, pitch FX numbers and horizontal break and this and that on pitches you don't throw often. Like, you can't comprehend everything. And so I think it's refreshing to hear that a major league relief pitcher that's having so much success this year and struck out a ton of guys, is only kind of focusing on 2 or 3 numbers at a time.
You got to simplify it. I think that's what's been so big for my career, is that I've simplified everything about myself. I throw high fastballs and I throw sliders that I try and make move as much as possible. And for me, that's been great. And it's not for everyone, but I think a lot of young pitchers, I think if we could just simplify throwing fastballs in the zone and off-speed pitches in the zone, I think it would go a long ways.
Yeah. So I want to talk about a little bit in season and kind of your preparedness, your homework. I know when we played together, you kept a notebook, and I started taking that tip from you. And we'd have our situations, the batter we faced, the result, pitch sequences. How much of that are you doing in the big leagues? Do you still keep that notebook? What kind of homework and research are you doing on a team? Let's say the Astros, who are in your division, you play all the time, you faced them a bunch this season, versus say now you're going to play the Miami Marlins, who's in the NL East, and maybe you haven't seen some of their rookies. You probably haven't seen Jazz Chisholm. You haven't seen those guys. What's your research and homework like? One, with teams that you've faced a lot and that have seen you, and 2, a new team with, maybe that you haven't faced a bunch of hitters before in their lineup.
Yeah. So we'll do the Astros first, because that's fairly easy and we're playing them right now. So for me, I go back and watch. I do still have my notebook that I take my notes on. I figure that's, it's not broken, don't fix it type of thing. I've always done really well with making sure that I write down those notes. So for me, I'll watch video of every at bat against the Houston Astros guys that I've faced, and I'll take a note of pitch location, pitch velocity, and then kind of the result on the pitch. And then I'll try and see, well, did I see him stepping in the bucket? Did I see him sitting on slider? Did I see him spitting on the slider and only looking at fastballs? Is he trying to go the other way? And kind of, so then I'll have some notes on the side. But for me, then that's what I do pre-series. So, we played the Astros yesterday. It was the first game that we had played the Astros. So the night before, I'll go back and watch all that video, read all my notes, and then I'll go into the series feeling like I'm a little bit prepared. And then, the Mariners do a great job of scouting. I'll get a, a 3 to 4 paper notebook on what they think everything they've seen against Houston Astros hitters are, and what I do really well. So there's, behind in the count, what they think I should throw, ahead in the count, 2 strikes. And then I'll kind of compare, like, hey, all right, they think I should be doing this. I think I should be doing this. How often do they link up for, here, we want fastballs at the top of the zone if you get to 2 strikes against this guy. And it's like, okay, that's exactly what I saw. So it's like, perfect. That's a big star. Like, hey, I got this against this guy. Or if it's, hey, we think you need to throw sliders. And I was like, well, I've gotten them out with fastballs 3 times. Why do you think that? And that's more of a conversation before the first game of every series. And we have great analysts that have answers to every question that I have and that sort of thing. And I think that's really helped with my preparedness, is that I've done all my notes. And then if I have questions, they have reasons for why they want to do things. And it's not necessarily that I'm going to do what they say. Typically I go with what I think, but I just want to know, okay, maybe I missed something. Maybe in that video I saw Yordan Alvarez, he had a bad day, and that's not really who he is. He's more of this guy, because our analysts have seen, 25 at-bats in the last week, or 30 at-bat. Like, they're very, very prepared. And so I need to know, hey, just because he had 1 at-bat against me last week that looked like this, the other 29 look like this. So maybe it was just a fluke, or I'm different than somebody, and that sort of thing. So for me, it's really just trying to develop what have I seen in my past at bats with them, and what do our scouts see, and then we're going to link up and figure out exactly what we think is the best game plan for everybody.
Yeah, that's good information to have. And especially for the younger viewers out there, high school, travel ball, start, because you'll face these kids over and over, whether it be in high school, whether it's in travel ball tournaments, whether it's in showcases. It's good to know and be prepared of how you can attack different hitters, what you've done against them, how you've pitched them. And it's crazy the depth that Major League Baseball, teams and pitchers will take to really key in on it. But I think it's a great point to be made that doing a little bit of homework and just remembering how you pitch certain guys and what they struggled with can, create good pitches and can get you out of situations and turns you into a better pitcher ultimately.
Yeah, I'm not asking. High school pitchers don't have 27 scouts at every game to write down stats and you have video of every single pitch you've ever. I'm not asking high school kids to figure that out. Yeah. But the least you can do is have a notebook. I mean, I have a notebook. It's not that big of a deal. Like, go to Target, buy a $1 notebook and a $5 set of pens, and write down your pitches against the guys that you face in your high school tournaments, because you could be more prepared next time. Okay, so you threw a first pitch curveball and he didn't do anything with it. Then you threw a fastball and he whacked it. It's like, well, okay, now I know, like, hey, he hits my fastball, but he doesn't hit my curveball.
Yeah, or maybe double up on the curveball there,
Yes, it's you just have, if you're more prepared than the hitter, then you have a little bit of an advantage before you ever start. And as a pitcher, that's all we're looking for, is trying to just develop a little bit of an advantage. Now, in the major leagues, the advantages are so small for every good pitcher and every good hitter. Like, you're just looking for 1%. Yeah. If I can get 1% more knowledge on Jose Altuve this series, I'll take it, because the guy's incredible. I need every 1% that I can get. Yeah. Now, if our scouts saw something last week that he was a tell, then we're going to try to do that. You're working for all the pitch calls or pitch sign stealing and that sort of thing. Everyone's just looking for 1% edge, because, your margin for error in the major leagues is so small that if you can get any advantage, you got to take it.
All right, so I want to jump into some golf talk here. FlightScope, big launch monitor, Bryson DeChambeau, Bubba Watson, all these guys on the tour using our X3 golf launch monitors. I know you're a big golfer. Do you know any of your golf data, ball speed, club speed, carry distance? Are you dialed in, you're going to hit your 7-iron 185 yards every time? Or are you kind of like, I feel like a 6 here, I feel like an 8 here? Are you dialed in with your golf numbers as much as you are with your baseball numbers?
Not nearly as dialed in with my baseball number or with my golf numbers as I am with my baseball numbers. I spend a little more time playing baseball than golf. But I would, as far as golf numbers, ball speed, swing speed, spin, I don't know any of those. Obviously, I haven't put enough time into working on my game with a flight scope to understand all that stuff. But I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of my carry distances. That I would say that I know just about every club in my bag, how far it's going to go. That's what I work on. Say, I have the joy of getting to play around the country a lot more than most people do. So for me, when I go to play a new place, I have to go to the range, and I really have to focus on, all right, what is my 56 degree, my pitching wedge, my 8, my 4, my driver? Like, what are those carry distances in New York? So then I know, okay, I can make that adjustment for what I'm used to in Las Vegas. Okay, I'm playing in Seattle. It's a cold Pacific Northwest. The ball doesn't go anywhere. Let me go to the range and make sure that I know exactly how far the ball is going that day. So for me, carry distances, I'm dialed in from putter all the way to the driver. But, swing speed, that sort of thing, I think that's probably different every single day, since I don't get to play nearly as much as Bryson and Bubba get to.
Yeah. Well, a little tip here that FlightScope, you can use the environmental optimizer. So if you're practicing in Las Vegas and you're going to play in Miami in a humid, hot weather condition, you can actually put in the temperature that's expected at the course in Miami you're going to play. You can put in the humidity, you can put in the wind that's expected, so you can go, see how your game and how the carry distances change from one environment to another. So you're not hitting, thinking your 7-iron is going to go 185, but maybe it's a little humid and it's going 174 that day. So
that's
just a little
pretty darn impressive. Not realizing. Okay.
So you mentioned that you travel around, obviously for baseball, but you've talked, maybe sometimes you bring your clubs if there's a cool course in the area. What are some of your favorite courses you've played, whether they're in season or out of season? Give me a top 2 or 3 of all-time favorites.
Yeah, like I said, I am extremely fortunate that I get to travel a lot for my job, and my job allows me a few perks that normal people probably don't get to have. But I try to play golf as much as I possibly can, and I've gotten some pretty darn lucky. I would say my favorites that I've gotten to play, let's see, would be Shinnecock Hills in New York. I got to play there a couple of weeks before the U.S. Open in 2018. That will forever be. I'm not sure that can get topped. That was there's only probably 2 or 3 places in the whole world that are better than that place. And to play at the week of the U.S. Open was pretty darn special. So that one's definitely at the top of the list. And then, we got to play Sleepy Hollow this year when we went to New York, and that just blew my mind. It was absolutely incredible.
Those pictures you sent me looked immaculate.
Yeah. I mean, we did not have a bad day at Sleepy Hollow. That's for sure. Anyone who's a big golf fan has seen pictures of 16 on Instagram. They have the short par 3 surrounded by, essentially an island green surrounded by sand with the Hudson River in the back. And that just was, you get to see it 5-6 times throughout the course. You kind of you're just teased by it from the second you get to the second green, and you just can't wait to get there. And then you get to hit it. And it was incredible. And, center of the green. It's a short par 3, and they have a thumbprint in the middle of it. Seth Raynor's done that with a bunch of places. I had the same thing at Camargo in Cincinnati. So that's one of his specialties. So it's super short. It was just a pitching wedge. It was 132, I think, to the center of the green.
Okay.
Pin was in the right corner. I wasn't nearly comfortable enough to go into the right corner and take my chances. 132 right in the middle of the green, right in the middle of the thumbprint, but then had to deal with the thumbprint green and 3-putted, which was very disappointing. But
after you've been looking at it all day,
nobody knows that other than the caddy and my partner. So it was pretty cool. So I'll say, Shinnecock was a once in a lifetime day. I'm not sure I'll ever have anything topped. But Sleepy Hollow has been the best place that we've gotten to play this year. It was pretty special. We had a great time out there.
All right, I'm going to open this. This is our last question for today. We got to wrap up here. I'm going to give you an option for 2 questions. So I'll let you pick which one you want to answer.
Okay.
So the first one is your bucket list golf trip. You get a week. Any of your buddies you want to pick and go with, your wife, your baby. You got a week of wherever you want. Say you get to play the course 4 or 5 times or a couple different courses. Where would you go?
Okay.
Second question is, you're going to host a dinner party and you get to invite 4 people. So it'll be yourself and 4 others. They can be dead or alive, celebrities, athletes. Who do you want at the dinner party sitting with you at the table?
That's a good one, but I'll take the bucket list golf. Now I have an unrealistic one and a realistic one. My unrealistic one is the one that Commissioner Roger Goodell got to take the other day, where he played Pine Valley, Augusta, and Cypress in one day, which is just flat out rude for the rest of us peasants that will never get to play any of those 3, let alone 3 in one day. I think that is the dream, of course, but unless you're the commissioner of the NFL, a normal bucket list, going to Bandon, playing the 6 courses there at this point would be, that's pretty much golf heaven. Spend a week there, play 1 every day, maybe a couple every day. I think that would turn into golf heaven for me. That's a bucket list trip that once I'm done playing baseball and I can go during the summer, it's a little bit warmer. That's right at the top of the list of things I want to do once I'm done playing, for sure.
Well, once you retire, I'll be joining you for that trip. So
I wouldn't have it any other way.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Thanks for spending some time here. You're in the hotel there in Houston, and we wish you a ton of success this season, the rest of the year. Hope you guys make the playoffs and continue doing what you're doing. So thanks for your time today.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate the FlightScope family reaching out.